Howdy SEO Moms fans, welcome to another edition of Whiteboard Friday. This week, we're talking about some keyword metrics for SEO and how you can drive action from the data that you collect. Now, some of this data is in the SEO Moms platform. A lot of it is stuff that we haven't added in or that you might be calculating manually yourself. Certainly, all of it is available from your web analytics tool, Google Analytics or Omniture, Web Trends, whatever you're using, and from doing some specific analysis yourself, maybe in Excel or something like that. And what I want to help you do here is take all of this information, all of these data points that you're collecting about the keywords that are driving traffic to your site and be able to use them to take smart actions. Because collecting metrics is fine. It's good to have analytics, good to have data, but it's useless unless you do something with it, right? I mean, why bother looking at the number of or the percentage of market share of search engines unless you're going to actually take action based on those things? So let's dive in here, take a look real quick. So the first one that I want to talk about is search engines versus market share. So this is things like, okay, I'm getting 84% of my traffic from Google, 8% from Bing, 6% from Yahoo. This is fine, and it's something you might want to measure over time. And over time, if you see that your shares are increasing or decreasing, you might take some action. But the thing that you really want to do is compare it against the market averages. And so I would, I'll have Aaron put in the Whiteboard Friday post a link to I think it's StatCounter, who's got some great metrics around what these average market shares are for most websites and referring traffic. Key important point, do not use ComScore data. Okay? If you use ComScore data, what you will see is something like, Google has 65% market share, Bing has like 14% market share, Yahoo has like 20% market share. No, right? Everyone's website shows that they're getting between let's say 80 and 90% of their search traffic from Google, right? So if Google's market share is 65%, how is this possible? Well, the reason is because remember that ComScore is counting all searches on the Microsoft networks and on Yahoo's networks. Yahoo has a huge content network. Microsoft has billions of web pages. Any searches performed internally on those sites count towards the search share versus Google, who basically has very few actual web properties, media properties, content properties, so all the searches go off-site to somewhere else, right? Very few of those searches stay on Google versus Bing and Yahoo, where a large percent of the searches that are performed end up back on Microsoft or Yahoo properties. The action that you take once you see one of these is if your market share numbers are way off, and you think they're way off for your sector, right? So you could use some scoring against some competition. You could use something like a Hitwise to determine that. You would want to say, oh, you know what? We are low on Bing. We're going to expend extra effort to try and get traffic from Bing. And the other thing that I'd highly recommend that you put in here, along with this column, is so search engine, market share, you versus the average market shares. And then you also want to have something like a conversions data. And throughout this talk, throughout this quick Whiteboard Friday, so conversions, I got 3 here, I got 6 there, I got 9, I got 10, whatever it is. I want to say that I know conversions is one of those metrics that's tough to gauge, especially for a lot of B2B folks or folks who are driving traffic to their site, and then they have offline conversions via phone, all these kind of things. And so driving at what is the actual conversion value, these kinds of things is very tough for you. If you're in a pinch and you want a metric that infers conversion, infers value, I really love using browse rate. So browse rate, come over here for a sec. Browse rate is essentially a simple metric that'll say something like 1.7, which means that on average, when somebody visited a web page of yours, right, visit one of my web pages, they browse to, let's say 1.7 other pages, or 0.7 other pages, meaning that if 100 visits come, I will probably get 170 page views from those 100 visits that land on this page, that come from that search engine, that come from that source. So do you get what I'm saying? Basically, what's nice about browse rate is it exists for every source that you could possibly think of, and it's there by default. You don't need to add a conversion action. And it strongly infers, usually, that you will get more value from that visitor. So browse rate is a great sort of substitute if for some reason you can't get conversions. If you can get conversions, by all means put them in. Add action tracking. You should have that in your web analytics. But If for some reason you can't, browse rate is a good substitute. And it's a great way to substitute if you're looking at traffic sources that aren't conversion heavy, but you still want to compare the value against them. Let's look at keyword distribution. A lot of people like to break out keyword distribution in a number of formats. So keyword distribution is a common metric, right? So folks will say, how much traffic, how many keywords are sending me are coming from the head of the demand curve, middle of the demand curve, tail of the demand curve, or long tail. I actually like using 4 breakouts. And so what I do is like head is more than 500 searches per month in terms of volume. Middle would be like 50 to 499 searches. Tail would be less than 50. And then long tail would be like, there's no volume report, right? Google AdWords tool or whatever your data is pulling says, boy, you know what, there's nothing from here. Again, these are frustrating metrics to get. If you need to get them, what I would recommend is use a combination of your rank, right? So if you're tracking with SEO Moz, or you're using the SEO book rank tracker, or you're using some professional enterprise level thing like Conductor or Bright Edge or Covario, a rank above, a search metrics, those kinds of things. You want your rank, and then you want the number of visits, right? So, and essentially what you get if you put these together is you can get a sense of, oh, you know what, this drove quite a bit of traffic, but my ranking wasn't that high, therefore I'm inferring that this is a head term. Or, oh, you know what, my visits were quite low, even though my ranking was quite high, therefore I'm inferring this is a tail term. And hopefully in the future there'll be, I don't know, someone will make some spiffy software to do that when you think about that. So once you have these distributions, right, you can see the number of keywords that those send, right, or the number of keywords that are in each of these buckets, the number of visits that they send, the average ranking of those keywords. So again, you could calculate that, inside your Moz web app or a number of these other apps, and conversion actions that you drive from these. And what's great about this is this really lets you see, like, hey, hang on a second. You know what? I spend all my time worrying about my rankings for these, 45 keywords, the ones that are in my head that are driving most of my traffic. My average ranking is number 8, so I still have a lot of room to move. But if I look at my conversion actions across these, I think that the biggest opportunity might actually be, maybe it's here in the tail, right? Or even in the very long tail. And then I would think to myself, boy, I need to stop spending a bunch of time worrying about these few keywords that I manage and try and get rankings up on, the vanity keywords. And I need to think a lot more about the value of tail because, for every keyword that I can capture here, the number of conversion actions I can get from that is dramatically higher. And when you see metrics like this in your analytics, this really drives you to be a different kind of marketer, to think to yourself, all right, how do I get more user-generated content? How can I produce more editorial content? Can I license content from somewhere? Could I syndicate out my content from places and get more people contributing back to me? Content is clearly driving a ton of value, and I need to do more content marketing. Likewise, I highly urge, I think this is actually coming really soon in the Moz web app, but I highly urge you to segment branded versus unbranded keyword terms. This is incredibly important because if branded is driving all of your value, then SEO is not really working for you other than to capture keywords that you would almost certainly otherwise capture. When unbranded is capturing a lot of value, that's really your sort of SEO work, capturing people early in the funnel in the discovery process before they know about your brand. And so breaking out branded from unbranded really lets you see how well the efforts of your managed SEO efforts are going. And likewise, branded does let you see how well efforts like branding and market share and mind share among consumers or mind share among businesses if you're B2B is going. And if you see these metrics trending up or down, particularly if you see branded trending down, you might think to yourself, boy, we need to get out there more. We need to get more exposure. People are losing excitement or interest in our brand. And if you see unbranded going down, you might be thinking to yourself, well, you know what? Either we're losing out in competitive rankings or we're losing out in the long tail. And then you can look up here into the keyword distribution curve and figure out where that's happening and why you're losing or gaining. And so this is very important from an analytics standpoint. It's also important from an action driving standpoint. It can tell you what to do, what to concentrate on, what to worry about and not, where campaigns are going well and not, right? So, your brand is going badly. You might want to talk to whoever's running your brand advertising, because that's probably in their wheelhouse. The next thing I like to look at, top keywords, right, from a keyword metric standpoint. So you've got your top keywords here, and I have, you probably would have a big list of keywords in the Moz web app. You know, I don't know, I keep track of around 75, 80. I could have up to 300 in there, but I do, you know, searches, and you can do this, you know, you can do this just using your Google Analytics, right, which is free. So I might look at the number of searches that were generated. This is going to have to come from AdWords, which is frustrating. But if you can do it for your managed keywords, it's very nice to have that number in there. I might look at visits, conversions, average rank, and if you want, I would add one more here and look at, I like adding keyword difficulty and looking at that. And the reason is I can really get a sense of which keywords are going to be easiest for me. So if I see, you know, this keyword has got 4 conversions, 2 conversions, 1 conversion, but if I see something like, oh, there's only 15 searches, I'm ranking number 1, there's not a lot of opportunity there. But I see here, well, I got a 1% conversion rate. If I work on conversion here, you know, and let's say the difficulty, I don't know, this is 55 and this is 48 and this is, you know, 72, right? So 72, oh, that's going to be super hard. That's going to be very challenging, right, to increase this. There's not a ton of search volume. I'm already capturing some of this one. This one looks really good to me, right? That looks like where I would focus some more actual effort on a single keyword. And that's exactly what this list is designed to let you do, to look at conversions against visits and search volume and difficulty and say, hey, I have opportunity. You know what? I rank a little better. If I can push that up to number 3, even 3.5, I'm gonna really help my business. I'm gonna capture more customers. And the last place I look from a keyword metric, it's technically not a keyword metric, but I think it's very, very important because of how it captures keywords and encapsulates this data, is top content, right? So this is essentially like, all right, this is, you know, here's my home page. Maybe that's my landing page for, you know, product A, and this is product B. I can see how many visits from search that I'm getting on these. I can calculate the number of conversions on those. I look at the number of keywords that are sending visits to these pages. And this really helps to tell me the content that I've produced in the past. How successful is that? And going forward, it informs me what content should I keep creating, right? So, you know, for product stuff, great, but when you're doing content marketing, if you're running a blog, you're doing video, you're producing articles, you're syndicating or licensing stuff, you're having guest writers post things for you, you're doing user-generated content, finding out the value of that stuff is amazing, right? Being able to know which content drove the right kinds of actions and is driving, you know, lots of different keywords, long tail stuff, head stuff, whatever it is, lots of conversions, lots of visits from search. You might want to segment, by the way, so that this is conversions, specifically search conversions, so that you're not getting, for example, something mixed up where these are people coming from other sources to these pages and then converting. You actually want to know for the visitors from search how many conversions you get on these. And having this information is going to be great for analyzing previous content, knowing what types of content to produce. So what's great about the analytics process is it makes, you know, an SEO a much more data-driven marketer. I look out in the world, and I'm sure you do this too, and you see, boy, you know, there's the ad team over there, or there's the paid marketing team over there, and they're doing, you know, sponsorships of events, and they're doing, you know, branding plays, they're doing television advertising and radio and print, you know, magazines and newspapers. And they're not held to kind of these strict standards, right? Like a lot of that stuff is uncapturable. The beautiful thing about SEO is how measurable this process is and how much you can do to improve it. When you start to get these metrics up and running and you start doing this analytics process, oh man, huge, super win. Just awesome. All right, everyone, take care. Hope you have a great week. We'll see you again for another edition of Whiteboard Friday.